Alright guys, if you know the Microbrand Bramier, then you're probably aware of their Rock Diver. It's been pretty popular. So they've decided to release this new limited edition Apex Rock version. And as you'd imagine, with it being limited edition, that means there are some differences between this and that original version. And we'll get into them as we get into the review. So I didn't actually check out the original Rock Diver, but I've checked out a previous watch from Bramier. So I'll leave a link to that up in the top if you want to check that out. Getting back to this one though, I do think it looks pretty smart. So let's go into the dimensions, because this is where one of the first differences comes in between the original and this limited edition version. So we've got a diameter of 40mm, apparently the original was 39, so slightly larger. Then we've got a thickness of 12.2, lug width of 20, then the all-important lug to lug is coming in at 46.2. When it comes to the weight on the supply bracelet, with all the links included, it's coming in at 157 grams, and then size for my 7-inch wrist, about 150. So let's take a closer look at that now, because there is something to mention here that is going to change on the final version, because this is just a review piece that's gone round. So this clasp is actually just a pressed one, so it is going to be changed, although only to one with micro adjust, not one that's actually on the fly adjustable. Now moving on to the case back. So this is what the original one looked like, and then here's what the new limited edition version looks like. So I do like the look of it, but as you can see it does gather scratches quite a bit in fingerprints. But I do like that it's quite clean. There's no spec sheet around the outside, just a screw down case back, the brand name, the model name, and the fact that it's limited edition. Now moving on to the bracelet itself. So on the listing it actually says it's beads of rice, but I wouldn't call this beads of rice myself. I just call it a 5-link bracelet, because those links in the middle are completely flat, not really got any curvature or shape to them to make them look like beads of rice. But the brushing and polishing is done nicely, and then we have just got push pins on that as well. But now let's move on to the head of the watch, starting with the side profile. So we've got that signed crown there, brushed sides, nice coin edge on the bezel, then we've got a nice polished chamfer, and then transitioning to the top of the lugs, which again are also brushed. And you can also see that the end links integrate into that quite nicely too. Everything's nicely rounded off, no sharp edges or anything. But now let's move on to the main thing that differentiates this from the standard version, and that is the dial. So we've actually got that design on the dial, which I'm assuming is supposed to represent rocks and the mountains, but I personally think it looks more like a dried lake bed. But let me know, what do you think? And depending on the lighting, it can actually be quite subtle. Sometimes you won't see it as much as others. So we've got applied indices, printed text, just the branding at the top with the logo, which is actually applied, although it is quite thin. Then when it comes to the hands, we've got nice black surround on them, so the contrast with the dial works really well, and the same goes for those indices as well. Although I would like to see both of them slightly larger. The indices, if they'd made them all the same size as the 3 and the 9 ones, I think that would have worked better, just filled some of that empty space on the dial. And then when it comes to the hands, just have them slightly longer, in particular the hour hand. Although that might cause issues with that date window though. And then perhaps just make them slightly thicker, again, just to fill up some of that empty space. I do like that we've still got a truncated index down at the 6, just below that date window. And when it comes to that date window, personally I think it is a touch cramped. Just make it slightly wider, and then I think that'd be perfect. But now let's check whether we've got sapphire crystal on this or not, using the trusty diamond selector 2. And yep, we have got sapphire crystal, so it's always good to see. So now, let's move on and talk about the movement. So we've got a Miyota 9015 in this, so that's a high beat movement, that's why we get that nice smooth sweep at the second end. So if we unscrew the crown, nice and grippy, nice size. Pop it out to the first position, then we can change that date, pop it out to the second position, second hand stops, so we go hacking, then we can just change the time, and then pop it back in, second hand re-engages, all works well, hand winding, no issues at all. I do really like these Miyota 9000 series movements. They're definitely a nice upgrade over the NH35 that you see far too often. So now let's get onto the bezel. So it's a 120 click ceramic bezel, so I'll show you that in action now. So it's got a nice clicky action. We've got a little bit of backplay there, a little bit of bounce, which isn't ideal. But the action, as I say, is nice, not too heavy, not too light. When it comes to the alignment, you can see there's something not quite right with this one here. But as far as I can tell, I don't think it's actually the bezel. I think the dial is slightly twisted to the left. But again, bear in mind, this is a review piece that's been around quite a bit, and it's not the finished version, which is why things like that clasp are going to be different too. But now let's check out the Lume and see if that's any good. So we've got a bit there already, but let's charge it up, give it a proper chance. And there we go. So initially, as you can see, it's looking really bright. It's not quite as bright as it's appearing on camera. It doesn't actually light up the dial as much as it looks like. Hopefully it'll settle down in a second. So as you can see, we've got BGW9, that's why we've got that nice ice blue colour. And we've got plenty of it on the hands, indices, and also on that bezel. I think it is a really cool looking Lume profile, especially with the way they've done that bezel. So we've got no patchiness, and initially at least, it's looking pretty consistent across the hands, indices and bezel. But the question as always is, what is the longevity like? So let's speed this up now and find out. So to begin with, not too much of a change. Nothing looks like it's obviously going to be fading before anything else, which is always good. The further we go on though, you will see that the bezel does fade slightly more than the rest, but not as much as I was expecting, especially that line, because it's obviously quite thin, but it's still hanging in there pretty well. So overall, really impressive Lume. You're not going to have any issues with this at all. It's going to last you all night, no problems. So now all that's out of the way, you're probably wondering, how much does this actually cost? So it's actually on pre-order, so it's reduced at the moment. It's going to be shipping at the end of May. So if you do want to get on that pre-order price, you need to be quick. So that pre-order price is $439, which, yeah, is on the higher end, especially given some of the issues we have with this. But again, bear in mind this is a review sample which has been around quite a lot, so it has been battered a little bit. I think you might just about be able to justify that price. Personally, I would have liked to have seen it at $399, but it actually goes up after that to $599, which I think is far too much for what you're actually getting. But let's go over the pros and cons, show you what it's like on wrist, and then you can make up your mind yourself. And here it is on my 7-inch wrist. I do still think it looks good, but there are things that I would definitely like to see improved and changed. Starting with this bracelet, I'd like to see a proper bead to rice bracelet, just to take it to another level. Obviously they're already changing the clasp for a milled one, but again, would have been nice if they'd gone for an on-the-fly adjustable one, especially considering a lot of the competitors do offer that. Wears nicely on wrist though with that compact lug to lug, and that slight curvature to the case as well. And considering it's a 300 metre diver, it's actually surprisingly quite thin. I guess you could argue, do you really need it to be 300 metre water resistance, or would 200 have been enough? And then you could have shaved some off that thickness, and probably also the price too. I think they kind of missed a trick with this dial. If you're going to go for that kind of design, make it textured. Don't just have it as printed. Do something similar to this one down here. Just give it some depth to that. And if you want to see either of these, I'll leave a link to the playlist up on the top and also down in the description. As I keep saying though, I do like the overall design of this, but I just find it a somewhat frustrating watch. It's kind of almost there but not quite on a few things. Just a couple of little tweaks and I think it could be great. But again, I do still think they need to reduce that price though. It needs to be below the 400, especially when it's lacking things like on-the-fly adjustable clasp, possibly even quick release bracelet. These are things that are becoming more and more common now, with a lot of microbrands and also even AliExpress watches too. So they need to try and keep up with that, or they just have to reduce the price to account for it. One or the other, or ideally both. And for those reasons, I can't really recommend this one. Unless you really, really like this design, I'd probably be going for something else. But am I right? Or do you completely disagree with me and you love this watch and you do want to pick one up? If you do, don't forget the link is down in the description and make sure you pick it up on that pre-order price before the end of May. But that's it for this one guys. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.